Right now, I want to take a live look over the White House as we talk a little bit more about the situation with the tariffs. President Trump saying that he is, quote, absolutely ashamed of the Supreme Court justices who ruled against him, striking down his global tariffs. By a 6-3 ruling, the High Court blocked the tariffs levied under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, delivering remarks that you just saw there at the White House just hours after the ruling came down. President Trump called them, quote, disloyal to our Constitution and lapdogs.
We have alternatives, great alternatives. Could be more money. We'll take in more money, and we'll be a lot stronger for it. We're taking in hundreds of billions of dollars. We'll continue to do so. To show you how ridiculous the opinion is, however, the court said that I'm not allowed to charge even $1. I can't charge $1. Can't charge $1. I would have used 1 penny, but we don't make the pennies anymore. We save money. Can't charge $1 to any country under IEPA. Not $1. I assume to protect other countries. This must have been done to protect those other countries, certainly not the United States of America, which they should be interested in protecting. That's what they're supposed to be protecting. But I am allowed to cut off any and all trade or business with that same country. In other words, I can destroy the trade. I can destroy the country. I'm even allowed to impose a foreign country-destroying embargo. I can embargo. I can do anything I want, but I can't charge $1.
And here's a breakdown of how each of the 9 justices went on the issue. President Trump explaining that he has, quote, very powerful alternatives, pledging to impose that new 10% global tariff under a law. Now, he signed that order just hours later, saying it would be effective on all countries almost immediately. The order was issued under Section 122, and it applies in addition to the standard tariffs that are already in place. Now, appearing on Fox News Channel's The Will Cain Show, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was asked by Will about potential refunds on the tariffs paid over the last several months.
You mentioned the revenue will not change for Treasury, but what about the revenue you've already collected? What about the $175 billion? Do you anticipate having to make refunds at Treasury?
Well, I'm not going to get out ahead of the courts. And as the president said, the Supreme Court was very discombobulated on this. They didn't give any guidance on it. I think it's probably not 175. I think it's probably closer to 130, but still a substantial amount. They have remanded it back down to a lower court. And as Amy Coney Barrett said in the original hearing that I was at, this could be a mess. And this could take months, this could take years to litigate and to get to the payouts. And if there is a payout, it looks like it's just going to be the ultimate corporate welfare, because what you don't know is, did a Chinese supplier lower their price? So they lowered their price because of the tariff. The product came into the U.S., the buyer paid the tariff, but it was really the same price as before, but they're going to get a refund on the tariff.
And of course, that was Scott Bessent there on The Will Cain Show. And just about an hour ago, President Trump once again took to Truth Social to talk about this, saying, quote, my new hero is United States Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, and of course, Justices Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito. There is no doubt in anyone's mind that they want to make America great again. There are a lot of questions about exactly what happens next here, so I do want to bring in Elaine Dzenski, the director and head of the Foundation for Defense of Democracy's Center on Economic and Financial Power. Elaine, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Thanks, Josh. Good to be here.
And of course, one of the big questions here, and this is one that we've been getting, it's actually 2 questions. What does this ruling do? What does it change, and what doesn't it change?
Right. So essentially what this ruling does is it restricts the president's ability to invoke IEPA as a mechanism for applying tariffs. So this impacts 5 different kinds of tariffs that the administration has deployed under IEPA. It doesn't say that the president can't use IEPA as a mechanism, but it can't be used in the application of tariffs. So this has an impact across a number of different actions that they've taken. Perhaps most importantly, the reciprocal tariffs that were levied globally earlier this year under that authority. So what does this mean? It means that the administration has to go back to other authorities where there is a more clear identification of that power to levy a tariff. And we've already seen that. You mentioned the Section 122 opportunity to use that authority to apply tariffs. The president has already indicated, and I believe has signed a measure to do that, and that will bring a 10% reciprocal tariff on all countries. So they're already deploying other mechanisms that are going to be used to try to stabilize the use of tariffs as they had intended.
And we actually just got another statement coming in on Truth Social moments ago from President Trump. And I want to read this here for the first time with you. It says, based on a thorough, detailed, and complete review of the ridiculous, poorly written, and extraordinarily anti-American decision on tariffs issued yesterday, after many months of contemplation by the United States Supreme Court, please let this statement serve to represent that I, as the President of the United States of America, will be effective immediately, raising the 10% worldwide tariff on countries, many of which have been, quote, ripping the U.S. off for decades without retribution until I came along, to the fully allowed and legally tested 15% level. During the next short number of months, the Trump administration will determine and issue the new and legally permissible tariffs, which will continue our extraordinarily successful process of making America great again, greater than ever before. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So it sounds as though, based on what we're seeing here on Truth Social, that he's now saying that 10% is going to be 15%. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, that would be my read on it as well. So he's taking the legally maximum amount here, which would be 15%, and applying it globally. So that's well within the constraints of that particular legal tool, if you will. So, yeah, and I think we'll see more under Section 232, Section 301. He has a number of authorities that can be deployed. The duration is what we need to have a look at. So under Section 122, he's allowed to deploy that tariff rate at 15% or up to 15% for up to 150 days. But after that, Congress will have to go along with it. So it is temporary in that sense. It does buy them some time to figure out how they want to cobble together a new structure based on the existing authorities.
As we talk about consumers there, again, we want to focus on how this could impact everyday Americans. Talk about some of maybe the short-term impacts versus potential long-term impacts.
Yeah, it really depends on the sector. So there are some sectors like automotive, pharmaceuticals, food, agricultural products that are already tariffed under other authorities. So we're not likely to see changes in some of those sectors. For others that were covered under, the IEEPA regime, maybe we will see some shifting. For example, for a country that was at 40%, now they're being subject to a 15%. So it really will depend on the product and the country and what they were subject to prior to this ruling. In terms of whether consumers are going to feel this right away, again, it really depends on what they're buying. So we may see a reprieve in certain areas for certain kinds of consumer goods, but not across the board necessarily.
I don't know if you can speak to this, but what role should maybe Congress play now that the court has limited one of the president's authorities there in that ruling? Any idea what role Congress now has to play?
I think that's an excellent question. Well, there's a window now for Congress to come in and work on a more deliberative strategy, ideally with the administration. It is possible that they could pass new authorities or clarify authorities for the president. But what I think the opportunity might be is to work hand in hand with the administration to figure out how to use our economic security power, our economic power, and align around the national security and economic security objectives to create something more durable. And by that, I mean use of these laws in a way that provides stability, no matter what the tariff rate is, identifying priority areas where we want to continue to have tariffs because it's really a national security imperative to do that. For example, protecting our defense industrial base.
And of course, we're watching as all of this is playing out in real time. Again, we just got that statement coming in moments ago from President Trump saying that 10% global tariff now apparently will be 15%. Not sure if he's going to sign another executive order, how all of that is going to work. We're, of course, going to keep everyone updated here on Live Now from Fox. But I wanted to ask you here, what do we need to be watching for in the coming hours and days?
Well, I think we're likely to see more use of Section 232, Tariff Section 301. These require a certain level of investigation to determine that a harm has been done to U.S. commerce or to U.S. security. And it's likely that there may be the initiation of more investigations to shore up certain areas where the administration wants to maintain a higher level. So I think people have been considering this alternative plan for a long time. So I would not be surprised to see the rollout of some additional measures in the next couple of weeks.
All right, Elaine, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. We covered a lot of ground here, but anything that you want to make sure to add here before I let you go?
Well, I think it's interesting to look at what's happening in North America, particularly with the U.S., Canada, Mexico agreement up for review this year. Does this ruling open up new avenues for that conversation? What about North America? This is, in my view, the most important trade agreement in the world. We need to be thinking about how to strengthen it, and there may be some opportunities now to reconsider how we approach that.
All right. Elaine Dzenski, thank you so much for being here with us and helping to break it all down. Of course, as I mentioned, we'll be watching to see how it plays out. Thank you again. And I want to pop this up on your screen once again. This is from Truth Social. President Trump posting it just moments ago saying, quote, based on a thorough, detailed, and complete review of the ridiculous, poorly written, and extraordinarily anti-American decision on tariffs issued yesterday, after many months of contemplation by the U.S. Supreme Court, please let this statement serve to represent that I, as President of the United States of America, will be effective immediately, raising the 10% worldwide tariff on countries, many of which have been ripping the U.S. off for decades without retribution until I came along, to the fully allowed and legally tested 15% level. During the next short number of months, the Trump administration will determine and issue the new and legally permissible tariffs, which will continue our extraordinarily successful process of making America great again, greater than ever before. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So we are following, as I mentioned, all of the developments here. And later on tonight, we're actually expecting that we will have a camera inside around 6:45 p.m. Eastern time, as President Trump will host a governor's dinner. Now, I can imagine that he is going to make some kind of comment about this, about the Supreme Court's ruling. And if he takes questions, we'll, of course, bring that to you here live on Live Now from Fox, as we always do.